How's everybody doing? This is Duane Fletcher with Fletcher Community Media. Some of you may know me by some of the action novels that I write. Uh, this is one of the latest ones. Uh, Codename Lionfish talks about a Chinese spy that they caught right here in Jacksonville, Florida, that worked on the military base here in Florida. One of the military bases here in Jacksonville. Also, Dance of the Mongoose talks about the events going up just before the coronavirus hit in 2020. Also, Fox Hunt talks about the new solar panel industry here in Jacksonville and someone's failed effort to try to sell the power company here. And some really good material. And so if you get a chance to check out blurb.com, check me out at blurb.com, and that's where you can find some of the books under my name, Duane Fletcher, DuaneFletcher, Duane Fletcher, on blurb.com. To start off first, because I know I haven't made one of these videos. I had to go. I went and worked like a regular job for about the last year and a half, and so I haven't really been making any videos and things like that. I haven't been doing any podcasting whatsoever. Trying to concentrate on work. I was working for like a defense contractor as a medium combat consultant, and basically that means that the place where I work, the defense contract, as a medium combat consultant, basically qualified to service medium combat vehicles like tanks and fighter jets and things like that. And the place that I work for, we service like fighter jets for the Navy here in town. We got big, huge Navy bases here, and but for the last year and a half, I've been kind of like studying. I've been working and studying, and what I've been studying was some of the things that have to do with like World War One, World War Two. Watched a lot of World War One documentaries, a lot of World War Two documentaries. Also watched a lot of stuff that had to do with the Russian invasion of Crimea, the Russian invasion of Georgia, the Russian invasion of the Russians in Syria, Russian fighting in Syria, and things like that. So basically, and also the Russian invasion of Chechnya, and so basically, that brings me to the subject matter. The first thing I want to talk about on today's podcast has to do with the Russian invasion of Ukraine. Okay, my heart goes out to Ukraine. Hopefully, they will can get past this. It's brutal what's going on over there, and I feel so bad for them that they have to end up having to deal with this. However, I will say this, that the Russians have been talking for like 8 years that they were going to do this in Ukraine. They were going to do that in Ukraine. And they have been talking for 8 years. And finally, the Russians invaded. And believe it or not, the Ukrainians were ready for them. And, there's something that can actually be said. It's a lot of American military people that are, and that means like Air Force, Navy, Marine Corps, Army. There's a lot of American military people that have said that they learned so much about the fight that's going on over there. It's a war in the Baltic states. It's going to unsettle Europe as it is. It's going to really unsettle Europe because the Russian guy says he doesn't just want Ukraine. He wants Latvia. He wants Lithuania. He wants Poland. He wants Finland. He wants Turkey. And I believe one of the Russian guys was saying also that he wanted Alaska back from the Americas and things like that. So I think it's a pipe dream. I don't believe it'll never happen because you could see exactly what's going on right now. He couldn't even basically invade the capital. I don't know why he tried to do that. That's ridiculous that he would try to invade Kiev like that. It's never worked throughout history on Russia. Russia themselves people have tried to invade Russia and take over Moscow several times. Napoleon Bonaparte from France, he basically actually made it all the way to Moscow, but couldn't hold it. Um, let's see, Adolf Hitler tried to invade Moscow. He was unsuccessful also, but for some reason, the Russians, they thought that they could use this same strategy and try and take over Kiev, and it was a complete flop. It's a complete utter flop. They had to turn around and do an about face, and now they're on their way back to Donbass, and that's where they're fighting at now. But they were pushed back on several fronts. There were several fronts that they were pushed back from, and they were not able to take Kiev, and that was thanks to a lot of people that fought the Russian soldiers that fought back and basically just pushed them back. It was two major fronts that erupted over there. At one on the one on just northeast of Kiev, and another front just northwest of Kiev, and the Ukrainian soldiers pushed them back. You know, it was a hands down victory. Now, sadly, there's still fighting going on in Mariupol and other places like that, but I did a lot of research on this. Because, like I said, I've been working for a defense contractor for like the last year and a half. So I wanted to be up to speed and have a really good opinion when asked about something like this. And so, like I said, I brought myself up to speed. I watched a lot of World War One documentaries, World War Two documentaries. The Russians. I watched the stuff about the Russians invading Chechnya and Georgia, and the fighting in Syria, and the thing is that what I noticed was that there was to like echo something that the CIA had said about this, just to echo something that the CIA had said about this, where basically the Russians were making very weird military blunders. And one of the first ones that I want to bring up was the fact that they tried to, when they first got there, when they first did the invasion in late February, they tried to land at the airport just north of Kiev, which was ridiculous. And they lost a ton of guys. And then they not only lost a ton of guys, they lost a bunch of their special guys. The Russians lost a bunch of their Spetsnaz. The Spetsnaz are like the top elite warriors that have to do with the Russian military and stuff. So they tried to just fly over the top of everybody's head and land at the airport just north of Kiev. Now, they ain't fought over none of this territory. They ain't cleaned none of this out. They just tried to land over everybody's head and drop in and start fighting, and it was a complete failure because, I mean, they eventually took the airport. But then the Ukrainians took it back. But then they took the airport, but then the Ukrainians took it back. And then the Ukrainians finally pushed them all the way out of north of the area that's just north of Kiev. And now they're on their way back to Donbass to fight and things like that. But there was a very weird military blunder because it appears to me that there's no real leadership in the Russian military, and that they have a KGB agent, which is Vladimir Putin, quote unquote, like a pretty boy or something, that's basically trying to act as his own battlefield general and do what he thinks so he can look cool or something like that. And but they just tried to land over everybody's heads. I have no idea why this airport was so important to him and things like that. But basically, he must have thought that he was just gonna land and they were gonna welcome him with open arms, and then I guess Team Chevrolet was supposed to jump out of the closet and sing "Let's Go Brandon," or something ridiculous like that. But I have no idea why he wanted that airport. It was ridiculous, and it's a flop. You know, he was eventually pushed out completely, and that's what he must have thought. And apparently, this is another thing. They were saying that he had taken a poll. He took a poll before he invaded. He apparently, true story, he went on like uh, whatever their version of like a survey monkey is or something, and took a poll and said that they were going to welcome him with open arms, and it was ridiculous. It was a complete flop. So um, let's all just thank God that that happened, because I mean, even if he would have taken Kiev, he would never hold it. He would never be able to hold something like that, because you have to look through history where basically Germany was reunified right under Putin's nose. Germany was reunified right under his nose. Tear down that wall, Mr. Gorbachev. Tear down that wall, Mr. Gorbachev. Um, and also, let's see, Afghanistan. Uh, let's see. Charlie Wilson, Senator Charlie Wilson from Texas here in America. Senator Charlie Wilson and the CIA got together and said that Senator Charlie Wilson uh, basically in 1984 began to uh, push weapons into Afghanistan and aid a militia that was shooting down the Russian helicopters. And the Russians, the people in Afghanistan were throwing rocks one day, and the next day they had like Stinger missiles and stuff like that. So the Russians ran. So they had to vacate Afghanistan like in the next year. So I think it was like like 2 years. It took like 2 years, and then eventually they left Afghanistan altogether. Um, but I don't know if any of you have ever looked at some of the maps that have to do with the Ukraine and Belarus and the area where they're fighting and stuff like that, where most of the recent fighting had over the last 2 months had taken place. But that is some legendary swamp. The border between the border between northern Ukraine and southern Belarus. It is some very legendary swamp. It's the Pripyat marshes. In one part of it near Poland, and some very hard fought battles went on there when Napoleon tried to fight Russia. And I remember one of the fights was called the Battle of Gorodencho. The Battle of Gorodencho. And the Battle of Gorodencho, one of Napoleon's generals, because like I said, I did a lot of research on this while I was looking it up, because I write action novels and stuff like that. And as a matter of fact, I'm gonna eventually do an action novel that has to do with some of the research that I did. But Battle of Gorodencho, one of Napoleon's generals was he was from Austria. So one of Napoleon's generals was from Austria, and he opted not to chase the not to chase the Russian Cossacks. He opted not to chase them. Instead, he stopped and just started firing cannon fodder and cannonballs over their head. And it basically broke up this ice that they were trying to run across, and a bunch of the Russian soldiers drowned and stuff like that. And that was one of the battles that took place in like the Pripyat marshes, right along the area where they were fighting at, near Chernobyl. And the thing is that you got to pay attention to this. You really got to pay attention. I'm gonna show you something here. You really got to pay attention to this. You really got to pay attention to this. Let's see. Let me look this up here. But basically, February 24th was right around the time when the Russians were just invading, and they had to ride. They invaded and rode through what they call the Red Forest, which is the area near the Pripyat marshes, and near Chernobyl, where they had that Chernobyl meltdown. It was a nuclear reactor meltdown from a long time ago. They kicked up a lot of dust. And when this stuff was going, basically what I did was I looked up like the blast pattern. I looked up one of the blast patterns that had to do with the original Chernobyl explosion. And this is on my lunch break. Just used to look up a bunch of stuff while I was at work, and this is basically what I noticed, that this was the original blast pattern from a while ago. And let's see, as you can see, this stuff went all through. It went all through. It went all through Europe, and it went to Italy. It went as far as Italy. It went as far as of like parts of Germany. It went through Poland and parts of Germany. It went all the way through parts of France. But it went pretty far. If you can notice this, this is the original blast pattern, and that was just one explosion. However, this particular time on February, around the time of February 24th, this area was basically turned into a battlefield, and the area was turned into like a battlefield, and which is several explosions and tanks and troop vehicles, riding through the red forest, kicking up this radioactive dust. Now this radioactive dust, it won't freeze in the cold. It won't freeze in the cold. It's not soluble in water. Basically, this stuff is supposed to be active for around 10,000 years, when you have something like that go on. And what I noticed was that immediately, because I'm also an amateur meteorologist, I always check the weather, because I used to do a lot of construction jobs a while ago. And before I got this other job, I was doing construction jobs, and I used to always have to check the weather and stuff like that for the different construction jobs that I used to do. And immediately when they said this was going on, I looked up the weather pattern. Now, mind you, I did not check this out until approximately 4 hours later, when I was off of work. Then I made a little copy of it. But before this, it was elevated around 4 hours, 4 hours higher than that. Let's see if I can get you. Check this out here. It's in the focus, but it's like okay. Well, anyway, this is the weather pattern that's over. This is the weather pattern over Ukraine. Now, what I noticed is basically just north of Ukraine, the weather is blowing. Just north of Ukraine, the weather is blowing. As you can see, the weather is blowing due north, and the weather pattern was going up, and it was going through parts. It was going through parts of Poland. The weather pattern is also going through parts of Lithuania and Latvia, and so any dust that was kicked up was going through Europe again, which can cause all kind of lung cancers and stuff like that. It's just prolonged and breathed in and stuff. If they, like I said, it was just one explosion before, but this time it was like there was like a several. Like I said, it was supposed to be like turned into like a battlefield or something like that, and that's one of the stories that I read, that they basically said that the Russian tanks rode through the Red Forest, and they themselves were not wearing any protective gear. I guess they didn't think anybody was gonna suspect that they would do something that asinine. But is reports saying that some of the Russian soldiers even got sick themselves. And then, like I said, it would have blown that dust from the Red Forest, because like I said, when I first took this video clip, it was 4 hours later. After I got off work, I took a video clip of it. And but the first original wind was blowing directly into like the Kiev area. So what I noticed, I would say, well, people need to know about this. So I know, like, some of the people, we talked about it a little bit at work. Some of the people that were there, basically, they saw me looking it up, and they was like curious, wondering why, what I was looking up and stuff like that. But this is basically the weather pattern that was going on. So then, of course, there was this argument about there was this argument that had to do with the United Nations, because the United Nations during this time, from the middle of February all the way up into because at first they started doing war games in Belarus. Ooh, excuse me. So they were doing like war games they were doing war games in Belarus, but that was just a bunch of baloney. They were actually preparing the invasion. So when the war games first started and all this other stuff, they started having these emergency meetings at the United Nations. And I know the American representative, I think her name is Miss Greenfield. I started calling her the Black Madonna. A Black Madonna is a reference to the Polish flag and the Polish crest from 1683, from a long time ago. I watched another movie about that, and that was it just talks about the how they saved the Polish people. The Polish military saved the city of Vienna from an invasion a while ago. And I started calling her the Black Madonna. That became her nickname because that's what they were saying back then. It was like, oh my God, it's the Black Madonna. We're saved. We're saved. And but this lady, Miss Greenfield, she had to argue with this Russian guy tooth and nail about this stuff. And he was just lying, lie. And like he would say one thing, he would say, well, they're not invading, they're doing war games. And then like a week later, they've invaded. And then he would say, then they started arguing about they started arguing about the chemical weapons and stuff like that, because apparently that was part of his game plan too. He was just north of Kiev, in Pripyat marshes and Chernobyl area, and the wind pattern was really brutal. This was a really weird wind. As you can see, it whips around at the end of it. It goes all the way. It's a really strong wind. It goes all the way to through Italy and Greece, and then it whips around and curls, and then it's hit by rain and thunderstorms near Turkey. Man, if you can check this out for yourself, if some of y'all know some weathermen, you could check the wind patterns back from February 24th, and you'll see what I'm talking about. But the weather patterns are like ridiculous, and it basically, when something like that is in the air, um, it's not going to landfall until it hits rain. When it hit rain, obviously it landed in like Turkey or something like that, because that's what the rain would do. The rain is so heavy, it would force it out of the air. Whereas in other instance, it would just whip around and blow around and carry on for 10,000 years, landing on this and then blowing this other place, and this particles in the air back and forth for a very long time. So they started arguing about chemical weapons, but um, the first thing I thought of that was that I thought of one of my martial arts workouts that I do, because as personally I'm concerned, far as I'm concerned, the Russians have been using chemical weapons in different instances. The Chinese have been releasing viruses, and one of the ways you can protect yourself is that the people that use that stuff, they use the wind, and they use the wind to carry that. The wind is a natural vehicle that they use to carry their gases and their poisons and toxins and stuff like that. And I'm not saying I'm an expert, but I like I said, I believe that had been being done. And but if you tie like a string onto something, you can always feel, this part of my martial arts work. I do a little kickboxing. I do a little American military CQC, which I learned from my uncle. My uncle used to teach hand-to-hand combat at one of the military bases in Georgia before he retired. He's retired now. And but I always want to make sure that I have my back to the wind, as to not inhale anything that would hinder you from being about your wits, because the Russians have been known to use all kind of different stuff. They use ricin. I think they caught one guy in Vegas making ricin recently, a couple of years ago. They also use this other stuff called Novichok, and the Novichok stuff is almost worse than the topsoil in Chernobyl, because the Novichok toxins that they use, they have different strengths or whatever. They got like a Novichok 1 and a Novichok 2 and a Novichok 3. and a Novichok 4, and they made several. They claim they destroyed all of it. They've been making the stuff since the 70s, but they claim destroyed all. But apparently, allegedly, they moved the laboratory to Iran or something like that. And but when they started arguing about this stuff, as you could see, the wind patterns that were on and around the first invasion, and when they were arguing at the United Nations, the wind patterns would have made it ridiculous for the Americans to be planning something like this, because that's what the Russian guy was saying. Oh, it's the Americans, and the Americans this, and the Americans that, and the Americans have a chemical weapons plant and in Ukraine. And he even went as far to say that Joe Biden's son was responsible for it, or where he was a biochemist or some kind of crap like that. And he was saying that he was also saying that the United States had created birds and rats that only attack Russians and stuff like that, which is also a bunch of baloney. Because if any of you that's up on your Dracula folklore, you know that's stuff that's out of the old Dracula playbook. That's the old, like a witch that studies witchcraft. She has what's called like a grimoire, which she writes down all her spells in and how to carry them out and stuff like that. Or like a witch doctor that does voodoo. They know have all these spells, but that's the birds and the rats and all. That's a bunch of what's the original guy's name? Count Vladimir Dracul. That's the old Dracula playbook. So that's not nothing that the United States was doing. It's a bunch of baloney. It's ridiculous. And not only that, but the wind patterns, it appeared to me, were set specifically at that time against Kiev. And this went on for a while. The next thing I know, that it started to switch back and forth. One day it will blow this way. One day it will blow this way. One day it will be blowing west. One day it will be blowing southwest. One day it will be blowing southeast. But it was all aimed at Kiev. So if anybody was going to use a chemical weapon, it would have been his forces right out there just outside of Kiev. And as a matter of fact, you probably could pinpoint it. You can pinpoint during the weather patterns, because this is what the Russians do. It's my belief that they do use wind and stuff like that to as a vehicle, to carry these toxins and stuff like that. And but if you pay attention to it and you monitor the wind with an app like this is a really good app, because you can turn on the thunderstorms, you can turn on the wind. I can't do it now because this is a video clip of it, but it shows you the different wind directions and stuff like that. Or just if you hang up a simple string or something like that, you can tell exactly. You can pinpoint exactly where he was going to do this from. His forces were just north of Kiev while they were arguing about the bioweapons. That's where they were going to release it from. And the thing was that also at the same time, Putin called for his conscripts. To join him from the Middle East. Now, this appears to be like some type of dog whistle that he was using to get his laboratory in Iran to bring him his stuff. And they were saying that he was getting troops from Syria, but more than likely, because they were arguing at the time about bioweapons, he was really ordering one of his battalions in Iran to bring him his stuff, his poison gases, his Novichok or his ricin gas, or whatever he had decided to use against the capital of Kiev at the time. And at this time, these guys, the Ukrainian guys, they were in the zone. They would have stuck out like a sore thumb, because there would have been some kind of special unit for the Russians ushered up to the front line. And at that time, then that's how they probably would have released it. And that's it, because Ukrainian guys were in the zone. As a matter of fact, whoever came to the front line, they immediately got hammered. They got the beat down. And The thing as because of the wind pattern, if you look at it, like if a canister lands on the ground, it's got like Russian writing on it, and then it starts to smolder and gases is coming from it, then the Russians did that. But if he's way back here with it and it's smoldering and the wind is aimed directly at you, then he would lie all day and say you have no evidence. It's just people getting sick. And he would lie, and then he would bring in his own experts and all that kind of crap. But if he's back here like this with it and it's just smoldering, but it looks like that's what was going on. And the thing is, that, like I said, the Ukrainian guys were in the zone. Whoever came up to that front line, they didn't even get out of the car. They didn't even get a chance to get out of the car. They were immediately fought. Immediately fought. He said they were going to welcome him with open arms. It's more like they welcomed him in open fire. And what I think basically is that it's so ridiculous to even think that the United States would do something like that. Not to mention the fact that the wind patterns are way off. Okay. The Russians also have something else in their arsenal. It's called the dead drop satellite. Now, the dead drop satellite basically is a satellite that can be outfitted. What it would look like probably is like a regular weather satellite or something, and supposed to be just monitoring the weather patterns and stuff like that. But it'll be outfitted with like a nuclear weapon or a tactical nuke or something like that, and the launch that like a NORAD or somebody like that would normally detect would be non-existent, and basically this thing would be just falling from the sky to its target. Now, you can imagine exactly what the target would be. It would be a target like Kiev or somewhere where he couldn't get into. However, the thing is, what me personally, I think that if he was going to use nukes, he would have used it on Bucha, and instead of letting all those investigators find those bodies. It's terrible. It's terrible that to see the bodies that he left in Bucha, innocent women and children, civilians killed, bodies with the hands tied behind the back, shot in the back of the head, execution style. Now, this is what his military was doing. And but I think he would have used nukes to cover up those bodies, because now there's investigators all over the place there. Private detectives from the Hague War Crimes Tribunal in Europe, and prosecutors, lawyers, a team of lawyers, prosecutors from the Hague War Crimes Tribunal, and they've discovered all these mass graves over there where the Russian military apparently got angry because they couldn't get into Kiev, and they started just randomly killing people. And it's shameful. And they should be held accountable for it. They should be charged with war crimes, the same way that they was charging the Germans with war crimes. The Russian is obviously the bad guy now. But the satellite, the dead drop satellite, if there is one looming overhead, or if there's such a thing as a dead drop satellite, then it's not indefensible to where it's just doom, and gloom. That if you program something like or calibrate something like a Patriot missile system, the American Patriot missile system was deployed. The American Patriot missile system was deployed in the Middle East, and it knocked down Scud missiles that were targeting military bases and civilians and stuff like that. But the Patriot missile system, if it's calibrated with its proximity sensors, it just has to get close enough to it, and then it'll detonate and blow it up. Now, the Russians have been known to use these type of missiles on their own stuff. They use like what some people call a Pegasus missile. that could basically take out a satellite, and it could be launched from like one of the MiGs that the Ukrainian Air Force has. The Ukrainian Air Force, they fly some MiGs that they bought from Russia a while ago. Um, and maybe if they get a hold of those Polish MiGs, I don't know why they wasn't given. Personally, I think that they should have been given I think that they should have been given the Polish MiGs, but they weren't never given the Polish MiGs. And the Polish MiGs, they could have flew in and went right to work because they didn't need any training. They didn't need any training, and they would have been able to fly these things. But one of those MiGs with a certain kind of missile equipped to it could fly up high enough and then take out the satellite, and then launch and take out the satellite. Like I said, if it does exist. But something like what they call a suborbital kinetic launch vehicle of any sort that can get up high enough to meet that thing before it hits the ground. And a lot of people are talking about this supersonic stuff that the Russian and the Chinese got that's supposed to be fast enough. But truth be told, with something that's calibrated to look for it, like if you could guess the target, I would imagine the target would be the capital or something like that, because that's what he does now. Terror. He couldn't get in. He's mad as hell that he couldn't get into Kiev. Don't be mistaken. He's still mad as hell he couldn't get into Kiev. But they talk about this supersonic stuff that these guys got now, and the matter of fact, they have some real interesting arguments, going on about the supersonic stuff that China has now, and the is it hypersonic or supersonic? I think it's hypersonic. Hypersonic missiles, supersonic missiles, but something like the Patriot missile system can target a hypersonic missile, but you would need to be able to figure out what his target would be. And with the proximity sensors, it doesn't have to catch up with the supersonic missile. It just has to get close enough to it and then detonate. And of course, the shrapnel and stuff like that from the detonation will destroy it altogether. So, and of course, I want to reiterate also about these weather patterns. If they're using chemical weapons, you got to think about what happened in if they're using these weather patterns with chemical weapons. But how you would destroy a chemical weapons plant is basically you need two explosions. You need one to destroy the facility itself, and another explosion, boom, to destroy the gases that are leaked out and stuff like that. Just vaporize it. And this thing was, they did this in Syria, where basically Aleppo. The city of Aleppo was attacked by Russian chemical weapons. Some people say it was a Wagner group, the Russian private military. They released chemical weapons, and they tried to disappear. But everybody saw them do it. Everybody saw them do it. Everybody knew they were going to do it, and they were punished for it. And this is non-negotiable. It's not debatable. Everybody saw them do it, and they were punished for it in Aleppo, where basically there was a joint airstrike between the United States, Great Britain, and France. And the United States used some Tomahawk missiles, cruise missiles, and the Great Britain used the Typhoon cruise missiles, and they bam, 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 they hit this chemical weapons facility and just completely destroyed it. And I think that's when they moved to like Iran or something like that. They moved to Iran. They moved their facility to Iran. But none of this stuff is actually indefensible. You just got to know how to destroy it if it's being used on you or something like that. You have to just got to know what different you have in your arsenal that you can basically put a stop to the Russian advances with. And I watched a movie called Heroes Never Die, and it's by one of the Ukrainian movie directors. I think his name is Akhtim Sebleyev. He wrote and filmed a movie called Heroes Never Die. It's a pretty good movie. And he basically said something that some other people said about the Russians fighting. He said that the Russians, they don't shoot at anything that's going to shoot back at them. Meaning that they talk the fight, but they don't actually do the fight. They like terror. They fight like terrorists. Period. They attack civilians. They attack hospitals. They attack daycares. It's they attack you could that like one of the stories was saying that the people they wrote women and children on the side of the building, and the Russians attacked it anyway. Um, so you got some people, there's some really ruthless people, and he doesn't shoot at anything that's going to shoot back at him. And if he gets beat on the battlefield, he's going to retreat, and he's going to he's going to attack the civilians from afar with missiles and stuff like that. So hopefully they can begin to monitor these different movements. I know I've been paying attention. I have some more information back here on my other board back here, but I'm not going to show you all that stuff because I kept documenting the different stuff that was going on because I write action novels and things like that. But so hopefully they can get past it, and they can they eventually push them out completely. And I can tell you right now why I started paying attention to this. Let me see. Let me see if I can look this up. Jonathan and Joshua Nibbleneck. Let's see. Jonathan and Joshua Nibbleneck. Jonathan and Joshua Nibblink. Okay, here we go. Let's look this up. As I said, Google's acting funny, like it can hear me talking about him or something like that. Google's Russian. It's owned by a couple of Russian guys that started. But basically, this this thing was weird as hell. Okay, this is when I started paying attention to this stuff, and I started monitoring the wind and stuff like that because there's some suspicions events that happened a while ago. Back in 2013 and 2014, where you had these two guys. They were supposed to be from Russia, and they killed this black guy. They killed this black guy right here. They killed this black guy right here. They killed this black guy named Dwight Martin. His name is Dwight Martin. He's from Jacksonville. He grew up here. And these two Russian guys, they beat him and they tied him up, and then they put they tortured him, and then they stuffed like a rag with cleaning stuff on it in his mouth, and then when he eventually suffocated and died, they took his body out to Satsuma, Florida, just south of Green Cove Springs, and they chopped his body up in the woods and then buried it in a shallow grave. And I talked to this guy's brother who used to work down the street at McDonald's, and he said they were Russian. He said they were Russian. He said, I don't know, say maybe he knew who his brother had dealings with or whatever, but he said they were Russian. And as a matter of fact, the first news stories that I saw said they were Russian. Now there's an issue. Some said that they were from, some of them said that they were from, what's that other, who's the conscripts he's got out there fighting right now? He's got some of the conscripts out there fighting right now that are from some of the conscripts that's out there fighting right now for Russia from let's see, Chechnya. He's from he's got so some people are saying they're from Chechnya. I also heard somebody else that was talking that said that they were from Kazakhstan. But the thing is that during the time, I have my own theory about what happened, because at the time when that happened, it had to do with the Boston Marathon bombing, and then there was a bunch of Boston FBI people scrambling around trying to figure out who these guys were, and they willed it down to like a suspects from Chechnya. It was a group of geniuses from Chechnya. They all go to MIT, and then they called the New York FBI in to do some legwork. So the New York FBI went to Orlando to interview one of these suspects, and they say the guy went for a knife, and the FBI agent from New York shot him. It was an FBI agent from Duane Street in New York. Duane Street is the address of the FBI in New York, and and right after that, that's when all of this stuff right here happened. There was this Russian vampire twin who done it. It lasted about 4 months. It looks like this was designed by the KGB or something. Anyway, because like I said, at the same time, this when this happened. This is when this happened around the same time when the Boston Marathon investigation was heating up, and so maybe they were mad with the feds in New York or whatever, and they chopped this black guy up with the same name or whatever. It's something, like I said, it's different conspiracy theories there. But some people are like, no, they're just a bunch of geniuses from Chechnya. They're just a bunch of geniuses from Chechnya. They're all geniuses. They go to MIT, which, come on, man. It sounds like when they start doing stuff like this, it sounds like a bunch of baloney. Like they might be like Russian sleepers, and I can't pronounce their last name, so I started calling them the Nibbleniks. As a matter of fact, I got a book coming out about that, about how they killed this black guy they killed here. Dwight Martin, rest in peace. And it's basically, there's a bunch of stuff, but that's, when all that stuff started going on back in 2013, that's when I started paying attention. And, because if you know anything about these Russian guys, that's what they use. It's like a form of witchcraft to them. They use toxins and poisons on people all the time, and stuff like that. So, but that's when that's when I started paying attention. And I make sure if I ever get in a fight with somebody, I always want to keep my back to the wind, as not to get hit in the face with none of this stuff that they use, whether it's a ricin or Novichok nerve agents or whatever. So that's why I pay attention to the wind patterns also. But like I said, what I noticed was that was going on. Now, let's see. What we got here? Like I said, I did a bunch of research on this, and it just basically there's no leadership on the battlefield for them. The Russians have no leadership. Their generals, they lost a bunch of Russian generals out there. The Russian generals were getting popped left and right. The theory that this is based on military SOP, standard operating procedure. You get some guys, you send them up to the front, and they got an objective to do. If they can't do it, you send more guys to the front to fight, and then they got an objective. They can't do it. So then, if the second set or whatever can't do it, then they start sending in the captain or the lieutenant or the general. And the Russian military is structured apparently different than the rest of the free world militaries. So they were losing generals and lieutenants and captains. And they were losing them like that because they kept having to go to the front line personally to see what was going on. And one of the main ones, oh my goodness, was this convoy. Remember, everybody thought Kiev was over. They thought Zelensky and the Ukrainian military were done for. They was like, oh my God, it's a 10-mile long convoy of Russian tanks. It's just outside of Kiev. No, it's a 20-mile long convoy just outside of Kiev. It's Russian tanks. Oh my God, it's a 40-mile long convoy. It just with propaganda and stuff, and people just running their mouth and talking. It just got bigger and bigger and bigger as people talk. Well, however big the convoy was, the convoy got shut down. The convoy got completely shut down because the Ukrainian guys, like I said, the Russian guy, he's been talking for 8 years. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. He's going to do it. When he came, they were ready for him. There's no two ways about it. And if you thought the Russians got beat trying to take Kiev, I'm pretty sure that they're going to lose a lot of guys, probably trying to take Odessa also. It's the same kind of force there. They're ready for him. He's been talking for 8 years, and they're ready for him, and they were ready for him. But the convoy got stuck on the highway. Now, apparently, the Ukrainian soldiers are so smart so smart. Um, because it's a lot of video gamers in Ukraine. They make video games, and they very intelligent people, very intelligent. Because to make I know because I tried to make a video game out of some of my action material before a while ago, and I tried to make some video games out of myself. And you got to know calculus to make a video to get a computer programming degree. You have to know calculus and stuff like that. But the Ukrainian soldiers are so smart, they burst dams, bam, bam, on both sides of the road. They burst dams, which created a bottleneck. Because if the water went all the way up to the highway. And basically, if the Russians got off the road, they would get stuck in the mud. Okay, so now the Russians are in a complete straight line sitting on the highway. They're still coming down the middle of the highway. So the Ukrainian guys then they blew up a bridge. So he couldn't cross over this particular bridge to get near Kiev like he wanted to get the convoy near Kiev. So then the Russians are now stuck on the highway. So then they brought in like backhoes and bulldozers, and they brought in this artificial bridge system that just like unfolds into a makeshift bridge over water. And the Ukrainian guys blew those trucks up too. As soon as they got near the front, bam, they blew those trucks up too. So now the Russians are stuck on the highway, and winter is going into like second or third gear. Winter is going into like third gear. And they gotta sit in the trucks in the cold and keep the truck running to keep from freezing to death, because it's like 10 degrees, 20 degrees outside. Okay, they ran out of gas. And then there's Ukrainian people on the internet that have been like talking about this, because one of the Ukrainian guys pulled up next to one of the Russian tanks and was like, "You out of gas? Well, you need a tow truck." But and stuff like that. So Ukrainians have really got in some really good jabs with them and stuff. And like I said, it's sad that it's still going on. The Russians retreated all the way back to Donbas. They couldn't do nothing. They eventually had to break the convoy up into different sections and try to outflank the city of Kiev, but they couldn't do that either. I said he's been talking for 8 years, and they were ready for him when he came in. And But like I said, there's a bunch of retired American generals. They're not only just a bunch of CIA people, but the Russians have no leadership. And like I said, I got a couple of pages here of dead Russian generals that died. Some of it's disputable, because some people are saying it's fake news. That's fake news. The Russian general, they ain't no Russian general. Some people are saying, as a matter of fact, I got in an argument with a couple of people about this stuff before. And some people are saying that it's fake news and stuff like that. But the thing is, if it's fake news, why are the Russians on their way back to Donbas? Why are they on their way back to Donbas? You know why? Because they couldn't take Kiev. That's why. So I don't believe it's fake news. I believe the Russians did lose a lot of leadership. And the big plus in the Ukraine favor was that a bunch of American generals, retired American generals, a bunch of retired British military people too, they basically began to comment on what was going on like Fox News. Fox News has a bunch of retired Army people and CIA people that work there, that's commentators and stuff like that. There's British military people that were talking about it. For the Americans, we had like General David Petraeus, General Kellogg. I think he fought Wagner Group, the Wagner Group Russians in Syria. Russians got a private military like Blackwater. They call it Wagner Group. Then there's General Kellogg fought them. Let's see. There's General McMaster's. There's General Hodges, and General Hodges, a retired American general. Basically, not only do the Ukrainian guys have their own military know-how and own military people still intact. there was a bunch of American people, American generals that basically were commenting on this, and they noticed that that's what they said. They said the guy was making like really weird military blunders. The Russians got no leadership on the battlefield whatsoever. They have a KGB agent that wants to look cool, and that's probably why he tried to take the airport and all of that stuff, and it was a flop, and they had to retreat and run. And I I knew a little bit about what's going on. I said a couple of these things before. I said a couple of these things before they happened. And one thing I said was that the Ukrainian guys, one soldier will get a chance, the opportunity to kill 3-4 Russians. Okay, because of the objectives. The Russian objectives were preposterous. Um, as a matter of fact, they still are, because now he wants to invade Poland next or Finland next, and he's getting beat trying to take Kiev. So the Russian objectives, but the Russian objectives were so preposterous, was that basically I knew that the Ukrainian soldiers would get a chance to kill 1, 2, 3, 4 Russians apiece, and that's what happened. There was at one point during the height of the fight over Kiev, there was a 4.5 to 1 kill ratio, which means that one Ukrainian soldier would shoot and kill 4 Russian soldiers and critically wound another. Okay? Not to mention the Russian soldiers that were taken prisoner and stuff. I know you've seen these videos of them. They get captured, and then the Ukrainian guys were putting them on the phone, making them call their mothers and stuff like that. And they call their mother crying because he got captured and all this kind of stuff like that. But it's a very interesting turn of events. Very interesting turn of events. And but like I said, the American generals, they were competent, and General Hodges said that he said that the Russians were going to come to a culminating point. General Hodges said this on, like, I think it was like ABC. There's a bunch of different people on different channels. There's like there's MSNBC. They got retired military people talking. There's ABC, CBS, NBC, and even the stock market channels, Bloomberg and CNBC. They talk about this stuff also. But General Hodges said that the Russians, by his count, because a lot of people like myself, were taking notes and stuff while all of this stuff was going on, and a lot of people were taking notes, and including a bunch of American military people were taking notes. And General Hodges said, by his count, that the Russians were going to come to a culmination point in 10 days. And he said they got about 10 days to 2 weeks, and then the Russians are done. They will have spent the manpower and machines that they had budgeted for the invasion. That they would, because the Ukrainian guys, they were knocking the tanks, Russian tanks, out left and right, like Superman was out there punching them out. And that's what happened. And so he said they were going to come to a culmination point. And so there's a couple of different time factors here. That went on. And there was the issue of them getting caught by somebody like BP. I think why they never actually used the chemical weapons, or whatever on Kiev, was because some kind of way somebody like BP got wind of it. And BP was like, well, if the Russians do something like that, of course, Europe must cut them off completely. You have to cut them off completely and not use any of their gas. And then somebody like BP got wind of it, and the Russians cowered from the thought of them losing their oil contracts because they used chemical weapons and got caught doing it. And that's what they basically almost happened, because them wind patterns were ridiculous. And so I like I said, I looked it up at work, and I know somebody else, was like paying attention. And let's see, so um, but the culmination point came and went, and the Russians turned and left. Okay, so the Russian turned and left. They turned and they left, and they went in a convoy back. They didn't go back into Belarus. Now, at one point, they did pull back near Belarus, but they went in a convoy back to over near Donbas. Now, one thing, what I would have liked to have everybody to be paying attention to was that if if the Russians are in retreat, which they are known for doing, they are notorious for retreating like this. They did it to Napoleon. They did it to Hitler. Once he's defeated in a certain instance or a certain argument, it's a big argument that everybody's watching. It's a big fight. And once he retreats from the battlefield, um, once he retreats from the battlefield, he this is not hundreds of years ago or 50 years ago or 80 years ago or 100 years ago. Once he retreats from the battlefield, what he would do at times, because he was pushed out a couple of times, and then he would retreat 10, 20, 30 miles off the battlefield and then use rockets, S400s, and he's got the S400s and the Iskanders and stuff like that, and he would retreat 20, 30 miles off the battlefield and use these rockets and stuff like that. And what I think that the Ukrainian guys should have done and would have been real good doing was that they should have stalked him with that javelin. Okay? Because if he runs from the battlefield, and turns around and shoots rockets, if that's what he keeps doing, you should be stalking him with that javelin while he's running. While he's running away, you should be stalking him with the javelin. And not only that, but stalk him with that switchblade too. There's a new drone called a switchblade. If he stalked with the javelin, if he stalked with the switchblade, if he stalked with that javelin or that switchblade, and when he gets to turn around and fire those rockets at some apartment building or some daycare center or something like that, when he turns around, you got a guy sitting right there with that switchblade. You got a guy sitting right there with a javelin, which could destroy his S400s further. And as a matter of fact, this is the strategy that Russia used to beat Napoleon. This is the strategy that Russia used to beat Napoleon, because, like I said before, Napoleon was the only guy that ever made it all the way into Moscow. But when Napoleon gathered up all the booty, as they say, the gold and the jewelry and the paintings and the chickens and cows and stuff, when Napoleon gathered up all that stuff and tried to turn around and go back to Paris, that's what the Russians did to Napoleon. They stalked him, and they whittled his forces down to almost nothing. By the time the Grand Armée got back to Paris, it went from like 600,000 men to like 30 or 40,000 men. Just whittled it all the way down by stalking him on the way back. They would stalk him and then they would raid him, stalk him and then raid him. And so, like I said, this is a bunch of stuff that Russia did before, and that can be used on them now. Like I said, I don't know if any of you've ever seen any of the maps of northern Ukraine or southern Belarus, but that's some legendary swamp. Hitler got stuck in that mud. Napoleon got stuck in that mud because during the wintertime, it looks like solid ground. But as it thaws, it starts to weaken and turn into mush and water. And Napoleon got stuck in that mud. Hitler got stuck in that mud. And now, this is the year 2022. The Russian is the invader. And now the Russians did what? The Russians got stuck in that mud. And It's just a turn of events. But a lot of this stuff that Russia did, you can use that out. You can use it on them right now. You can use it on them right now. But that's what they should do. The switchblade. Everybody knows what the javelin is. The javelin is like an anti-tank missile, and it can also knock down low-flying helicopters and stuff like that. The switchblade is a drone, which they call a loiter. So if he's running off the battlefield, you want to get that switchblade out and get a good loiter going. A loiter device means that it's just going to hang out in the air and pick the target. It's just going to hang out in the air, and when it sees a tank, it's going to boom, it's going to blow it up. And then it hangs out in the air, and it looks for a Russian troop carrier, then boom, blows that up. Or it's just going to hang, it's just going to loiter and wait till it sees that S-400 or that Iskander truck, and then it's going to boom, it's going to blow that up. So when he retreats off the battlefield like that, you want to get that switchblade out and stalk him. Get that javelin out and stalk him. That was one of the assessments that I basically could see, because they kept saying, "Hey, he pulls off of the thing, and then he pulls out of the battle zone, and then he turns around and fires rocket." He was hitting apartment complexes. He was hitting daycare centers. He was hitting hospitals. He hit a theater with all these children in it and stuff. And it's like ridiculous. And when I saw the footage, of the bodies that they left in Bucha, this is the stuff that the Russians are bragging about. The Russians, it's all that godforsaken rape and pillage that they did in Bucha. And there's like dead bodies, and just everywhere, women, children, men. They had been tied behind their back and shot in the head, execution style. And it's just sad to see something like that going on. It's extremely cowardly. And let's see here. But basically, that's what you got going there. You got it's And this brings me to another point. Now, a lot of people are talking about nuclear weapons, and me personally, and like I said, I'm not an analyst. I've never been in the military. However, I've worked for the military as a subcontractor, as a medium combat consultant before, like in a parts warehouse. And the thing is that as far as nuclear weapons is concerned, it would appear that if he was going to use nuclear weapons, he would have used it on Bucha to burn up all those bodies that he left behind. Because there's war crimes investigators from The Hague are there right now. And so that just, that's basically, let's see, what else I want to talk about here. It's, like I said, it's a bunch of different people that talked about the different stuff that went on over there. And what I noticed too with everybody, I'm pretty sure everybody, because you had people just like myself, not just generals and captains in the military that was doing interviews. I remember one guy was a supply clerk from Texas, from an Army motor pool in Texas. This one guy. And this one guy, he was a motor pool clerk from like Texas at the Army base there, and he said what he noticed about the Russian tanks would just freak you out. That he said he noticed that the Russian tanks, not the Russian troop carriers and some of their other vehicles were made out of wood. They were made out of wood. So meaning when it got popped, boom, when they shot it up or blew it up or something, basically everybody inside got hit with flaming hot chunks of wood splinter. It's made out, the bottom of the Russian trucks are made out of this thick wood. It's not made out of steel. There's some kind of cheapskate over there. Well, basically, and the guy, one of the supply clerks in Texas, he did an interview with like ABC, and he's, because of what he had noticed, and he said let's see. He said that he also noticed that the Russians had like a $20 million tank, and it had a $30 set of tires on it. So if they got stuck on the side of the road, the tires were popping, the tire would burst. If they got stuck on the mud, the tire would burst because they were old. And what he also said that what he believes, because he did his homework also. He was saying that it's his belief, and a lot of other people believe, that basically the Russian top brass, they pocketed a bunch of their budget. They pocketed a bunch of their budget for the invasion. So they put the money in their pocket. And that's why you have things like a $20 million tank, $20 million Russian tank with like a $30 set of tires on it. So that's that's a weird military blunder. And the tires were popping and stuff like that. They can't turn around. They can't turn around without losing the tire and stuff like that. But there's a lot of different people. There's a bunch of CIA guys. One of the CIA guys, his name is Rick Prado. He's an ex-CIA operative. Rick Prado. He's from Cuba, and he wrote a book called Shadow Warrior. So they interviewed him, and he was talking about how the Ukrainians were basically needed to fight like guerrillas, and they must, it just clicked. And basically that's what they're doing. And, and they started fighting that guerrilla warfare, and they hit them. And they hit them, they disappeared. They hit them, they disappeared. They hit them, they disappeared. And the Ukrainians won the day each time, over and over again, until they were pushed out of northern Kiev, the northern part area of Kiev altogether. And the Ukrainian guys did a tremendous job, the Ukrainian military. Like I said, it's sad that it's still going on in Mariupol and places like that, and Donbas. But they already had control of the area of Donbas. Anyway, another thing I had said before it happened was that the Russian guy, he's going to run back to near his own border, and then he's going to turn to offer battle. Then he's going to turn to offer battle. That's another thing that happened. They ran back to Donbas, and then they turned around and started and talking noise or whatever, and it is what it is. But that's what's going on. But that's how they fight. So now I'm gonna change the subject a little bit. We're gonna talk about what's going on with Interpol. There's a huge investigation at Interpol right now, and it has to do with stuff that's going on with Russians. They're facing a lot of sanctions and seizures. The Russians are facing sanctions. The sanctions are ridiculous. They're killing them. The Russian oligarchs are crying by not being able to use their jets and their yachts. I think J.P. Morgan Chase, they even seized one of the Russian yachts. The Italian police have seized Russian yachts. The Italian police seized what they say, it was a Maybach, a specially made Maybach Mercedes that one of the Russian guys owned. It was bulletproof. It was bomb-proof. It was worth like $100 million Mercedes. And if there's such a thing, the Russian guy, and the Russian guy had one, they seized it. The Russian yachts were seized in Spain. There's Russian boats in France that were seized. And which is surprising, because some of it's surprising because France themselves, they've been known to be kind of wishy-washy at times when it comes to different fights. Like there was that 1683 thing I was talking about. The 1683, they were talking about France wouldn't help them, and and then in the Battle for Vienna, and then there was of course there was the armistice and the Battle of El Mers in northern Africa, where the British ended up having to sink one of the French fleets to keep the Germans from getting it, because the French were apparently on the verge of turning over the French fleet of battleships to Germany. So It's just different things different things, but you can see what it is now today because everybody's talking about the French election right now. So the French election is going on, and Macron apparently is the only party over there that's not communist. He's had to fight off 2-3 different communist parties to get to where he is now. So I'm hoping that Macron wins, so it won't freak everybody out that they start um that they this new party that's up there takes Russia's side and backs out of NATO and all of that kind of stuff like that. And let's see. Also, but Interpol's got a big investigation going on. They say that the Russians have been allowed to create fictitious subjects, fictitious suspects, so that Interpol basically follows other people around instead of following the Russians around. It's like Patsy stuff, like Patsy, where they're all in on it and they got this one person that they follow around and lie on them, and it's really something that one of their Russian guys is doing and stuff that they're getting payoffs from. So Senator Bob Menendez from New Jersey, he's got a big investigation at the Senate Foreign Relations Committee going on, and I can already tell you what they're going to find right now. As far as Interpol is concerned, they're going to find probably some French policemen. They're probably going to find some Israeli Mossad intelligence people that just basically have been lying for Russia. Lie, 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 lie. And they help the Russians launder money. They help Russians with white slavery. There's a lot of Russians that do a lot of white slavery because they're mafia, Russian mafia, the Bratva, they're heavily into prostitution and things like that. And they're helping them hide their assets in different countries and things like that. And so I'm pretty sure that's what they're going to find. Matter of fact, we had a couple of people here. I remember we had a policeman here on the force. We had a policeman here on the force. We had a policeman here on the force that was basically well, he did like some illegal background checks. As a matter of fact, Senator Menendez was wondering what to charge these officers with or whatever if he catches them doing like slick underhanded stuff for Russia. So here in Jacksonville, I know they called a policeman now. I think his name was Officer Michael Roundsville, and like some of the people that he was allegedly working for were like brought for a Russian mafia. He was doing background checks for them. They was like into the pill pop thing. They had like pill mill stuff. So allegedly, some of them were Russians or whatever like that, and some of the people involved in it because it was a big investigation where there was something happening in Reno, Nevada. The Reno pulled over some people, and the guy ran and jumped in the police car. On the traffic stop, and then he drove off in the police car, and then they blew out the tires, and then he grabbed the policeman's shotgun and ran out into the desert in Reno trying to get away. Then he knew he couldn't get away, so then he stuck the policeman's shotgun in his mouth, blew his own brains out. So the cops in Reno have apparently never been through something like that. It was like, what the hell is this going on? So the people that they stopped were from Jacksonville. So the Reno police called Jacksonville, Florida, and asked the police in Jacksonville to monitor these guys. So during the FDLE FBI investigation in Jacksonville, they ended up catching a cop along with the pill pop crew or whatever. They called an officer. I think his officer name Officer Michael Roundsville. I believe that's his name. And basically he was doing illegal background checks to see if people were cool to do business with the Russians. And what he was charged with, which Senator Menendez wanted to know what to charge a cop with, was illegal use of a police database, where he had created a fictitious subject. He had created a fictitious subject to a fictitious suspect. He created a fictitious suspect so he could use the database and look up a bunch of different people's names and stuff like that. And that's what they charged him with: illegal use of a police database. And he got charged with the money laundering conspiracy with these other people who were allegedly Russian or not. But that's what happened. That's what you can charge a cop with. And not only that, but you can charge anybody who does this with the Corrupt Foreign Practices Act. The Corrupt Foreign Practices Act of 1972 says that you get caught lying on somebody for some foreign guy, it's a felony. It's a felony. Matter of fact, we had a guy here that got charged with the Corrupt Foreign Practices Act. I think his name was Richard B. Strong. He owned a company out by the beach. That's a couple of different things you can charge a policeman with if you catch him working under the table for the Russians. Treason, of course, being one of them, depending on the caliber of this police work that he does for these Russian guys or whatever. Depending on how much of it or different types of things. But you can charge him with treason, you can charge him with illegal use of a police database, and you can charge him with the Corrupt Foreign Practices Act. And that's the answer, Mr. Bob Menendez's question, because I watched that also. And just some things that went on. But let's see, I think that about covers it. And I want to bring this up again because I can tell you, it's probably a lot of you going to see this. It's a lot of you going to see this. But the reason why I pay attention to this stuff, because see, when this happened, when this black guy was killed, this guy, I'm going to say his name again, Dwight Martin from Jacksonville, Florida, when he was killed by these two Russian guys, I got a lot of flack for this because I was taking up for him and his brother. That basically, I met his brother at McDonald's down the street, and then all kind of monkey business ensued, and there was people that thought that this crap was funny because this is some kind of KGB vampire whodunit, because they're twin brothers, and it's like, is this him over here? Is that him over there? No, is this him over here? Is that him over there? This is what they were doing with this, and it's supposed to scare you or whatever, but it didn't fool JSO, who picked them up in about 4 months. They got picked up in about 4 months. I know it was supposed to last forever, but there was a bunch of there was like French people, there was like Jewish people that thought that this was funny, and and I know why, because they feel as though the Russians can do no wrong because they've been friends since World War II. They've been friends. They've all been friends together since World War II, and they've been Nazi hunting together. But, their network is doing other things. Their network is doing other things, like trying to make political statements, which this might have been of some sort, or statements against the police force or whatever. Statements against the police in New York or whatever that was supposed to be. Like I said, there's a different theories out there. Me personally, that's what I think it was. I can't speak for everybody. But I bumped into some French people and some Jewish people that thought that this kind of crap was funny. And, so where are they now? Now that the Russians, are running out of Kiev. I know they're still in Mariupol. But, these naysayers are still out there, and that's because they've been hunting Nazis together. So the Nazis been dead, it's like the World War II was 80 years ago. Anybody involved in World War II would have to be like 110 years old now. Anybody that fought in World War II for the Germans, he will have to be 110, maybe 120 years old by now. So apparently, since there's no one left to fight, this is what kind of crap that they were doing. This is what kind of crap that the network was doing now. They're in the street. They're laundering money. They're selling drugs. They sell heroin. They sell pills. And they chop up black guys and people like that, apparently, to like make statements or cause fear or whatever. So it is what it is. So but what does this network do now that the Russians are the bad guy? The Russians are the bad guy now. So what do you do with a network like that that's still out there? Because they're probably brooding. I remember President Biden, he took a submarine deal from France. Well, he didn't take the submarine deal. Australia took the submarine deal from France and let Great Britain and America split up the submarine deal. Okay, so now that America and Great Britain have split up the submarine deal, France is upset. So I think that kind of got the Russians' attention off rip before this invasion even started, because it's been people that have said that the Russians and the French are like this together in Europe. And so now that you've taken this submarine deal from them, you may have to take the badge from the guy too also. You might have to, because there's going to be instances where these people begin to brood and plot because they're angry because Putin couldn't take Kiev in 48 hours. That's what they're upset about. And believe you me, I can guarantee you that they're upset. And it's not just Russians, but there's going to be other people that support Russia that are upset that the Russians couldn't take Kiev in 48 hours, which was, I think it's ridiculous. Like I said, the people in Ukraine are too smart. They're smarter than anybody I've ever seen them fight before, because they really fought back hard. They fought back really hard. But so I guess next they're gonna try and make some kind of Minsk agreement. Some kind of Minsk agreement. I don't know if you're familiar, but the Minsk agreement, there's been Minsk agreement part 1, Minsk agreement part 2, the Minsk agreement, this will be theoretically the third Minsk agreement. The Russians are trying to fool you. He's just trying to buy some time until he can try and take another bite out of Ukraine. And like I said, this has been going on for a very long time. This has been going on for a very long time. And I remember here, okay, during the Russo-Turkish wars, the Ukraine area was fought over. And the Russians have really never been this far. The furthest they've been here is this theory right here. It's a theory called left bank Ukraine, right bank Ukraine. So the Russians, that's the furthest they have been and advanced when trying to take this, like in a nutshell. And this is a long time ago. But, and of course there is, let's see, the Russians control this part of Ukraine, and then there's let's see, left bank. And this is right bank Ukraine. But like I said, this is a theory that had to do with the Russo-Turkish wars, where basically the Russians were eventually pushed out. Because the territory meant more. The lands, the territory, the people meant more to them. It meant more to them to own this territory than it did to the Russians. They were just trying to show off back then. Apparently, believe it or not, Moscow was showing off back then, and the land itself meant more to the other people. And I really feel that this is what the situation is right now. That land, it means more to them, to the people in Ukraine, than it means to the Russians, and that the Russians are just trying to show off, look cool. When you see them land at the airport like they did, my Spetsnaz are going to land at the airport. How's that working out for you? It didn't work out. He lost a ton of special guys. He loses special guys because of these asinine objectives that they have. So that's what I think, about what's going on. But it's weird military blunders, and this is not just my opinion. There's a bunch of American generals, retired American generals, that have been on TV talking about it. There's been a bunch of retired CIA people on TV talking about this stuff also. So I'm gonna change the subject a little bit here, and I'm gonna try and hurry up and get done with this because the last video I made was 2.5 hours long. So I'm gonna try and condense it all down. And let's talk about something else. Let's talk about sports. Okay, all right. Let's talk about sports. What I want to bring up is there's been like an ongoing scandal in the tennis world. There was an ongoing scandal in the tennis world. Let's see, there's an ongoing scandal in the tennis world, and it had to do with the Australian Open. Now, the Australian Open really opened up a lot of people's eyes. The last Australian Open, the Australian Open 2022, it's just really opened up. It opened up a lot of people's eyes what was going on, because it had to do with a really big argument that erupted over the vaccines, where you had a guy who was the number one who did not want to take the vaccine. So this guy did not want to take the vaccine, and that was the Serbian guy, the Serbian number one guy. He did not want to take that vaccine, and so he got into this big argument. I want to show you guys my shirt. I got an Australian Open. Look at that. Australian Open 2022. I wanted to get me a souvenir for this because I had to end up doing some research on that too. And basically, so this guy, he ended up doing like one of these numbers where he basically, okay, let me go here. Let me plug this phone up before the phone goes out on me. The phone is getting dim. Unplug my phone up. Plug up my phone. Plug up my phone. Plug up the phone. Plug up your phone. Plug up your phone, Duane. Show you. And this is the wrong cord. And this is the wrong cord. And this is the wrong cord. Don't plug up the phone. Okay, hold on. We're having a little technical difficulties here. Technical difficulties. But I'll get it. Get it. Okay, let's plug up this phone. Okay. Now, okay, so just talking about the tennis match. Now this tennis match was basically a mess, because the number one guy from Serbia, he didn't want to take the vaccine. He got in a big, huge argument, and it almost appears as though the people in Australia got mad because they have been on some really severe lockdowns and quarantines associated with the coronavirus and stuff like that. And for this guy from Serbia, even though he was the number one seed, they didn't want to hear nothing about him. He don't want to take the vaccine and stuff like that. They got mad with him and stuff like that. So they told him not to come. He went anyway. As soon as he got there, they took his passport and they quarantined him. People in Serbia, they protested. They went in front of the hotel he was staying. They protested. They mixed it up with the police. The police had to spray them all with mace and stuff like that in front of the hotel in Australia. As a matter of fact, there was a report that said that the Russians had just dropped off a big, huge shipment of weapons in Serbia, as if to say, if you don't let him play tennis without the vaccine, there's going to be a problem. So the Australians didn't go for it. The Australians, kicked him out anyway. So all that was left was the number two guy to try and win the crown. Now, the number two guy is from Russia, Medvedev. Novak Djokovic is the one that's from Serbia, and which was interesting also, because if you do your research about this stuff, the Serbian people, the Serbian guy is The Serbian people is the ones that started World War One. They got this covert military thing called the Black Hand. Black Hand Serbia.
These pictures should match.
Black Hand Serbia.
According to Wikipedia, Unification or Death, popularly known as the Black Hand, was a secret military society formed in 1901 by officers in the Army of the Kingdom of Serbia.
Okay, so they got this secret organization inside their military called the Black Hand. They got, and they were the guys that started World War One, because they assassinated Archduke Franz Ferdinand from Austria, and but it looked like it was about to start all over again. And when all this stuff was unfolding, I was doing research on it, I was looking it up and stuff like that, because like I said, the Russians did looked like they dropped off weapons, like to say, if you don't let them play tennis, it's going to be a problem. So the Australians were not deterred. They kicked him out of Australia anyway. So the number 2 guy in the world is from Russia, Daniel Medvedev. So Medvedev gets up there, and he gets beat by the guy from Spain, who was number 7. So the number 7 guy from Spain beat the number 2 guy from Russia and won the whole Australian Open. So they played immediately again. And let me see if I can look some of this up. The Russian guy, he really fell to pieces. He lost it. And it was interesting. Let me see if I can show you this here. Let me see if I can look this up right quick and show you this. I got some of the clips here. But the Russian guy, he lost it, because as soon as he started losing, he started complaining. As So as soon as the Russian guy started losing, he started complaining. And as you can see, this face right here, he's making.
Maybe there is a chance that that's going to be my last Australian Open, but now that's plenty of energy to keep going. So thank you very much. I really can't explain.
Look at his face.
That I have right now, but I'm gonna keep trying my best to keep coming next year. Thank you very, very much, and see you soon.
You see that look on that Russian guy's face? I mean, he completely melted down. He just had a complete meltdown. I mean, he was looking really crazy. I think that's what the Jamaicans call like a screw face or something like that. I mean, he was looking real crazy, dude. But Rafael Nadal won, and come to find out, this is what some people say. I say you fact check this somewhat yourself. I don't know if it's true or not, but some people were saying that he was so upset because it was his birthday. It's the Russian guy's birthday, and they were saying that's why he was so upset. And so it looks like maybe he went home to mama or something, and she baked him a cake because he lost or whatever. But he really lost it, dude. I mean, he was so upset, it was ridiculous. And so immediately they played again immediately in Mexico. They immediately played again immediately in Mexico. And when they got to Mexico, it came down to them two again. Rafael Nadal versus Daniel Medvedev from Russia. And again, the number 7 in the world beat the number 2 Russian guy. And everybody went, the Mexicans went crazy and stuff like that. Number 2 guy, he's from Spain. But it is what it is. So after that, then there was another tennis match. And all the while, Novak Djokovic, the number 1 in the world, he's losing. He's losing face. And strangely, his sponsor still kept him, even though he was like, I ain't taking that vaccine and all this kind of stuff like that. His sponsor still kept him. He's sponsored by Lacrosse, which is from France. As a matter of fact, the Russian guy and the Serbian, the Russian number 2 and the Serbian #1 guy in the world is sponsored by the same company in France called Lacrosse. So Novak Djokovic, he had to sit out all of these different matches and stuff like that, and he had to sit out. He had to sit out Australia, Mexico, Miami, Indian Wells, and then finally the French let him back in, and he played in Monte Carlo because the sponsors from France, so they probably demanded that he be allowed to play. So they finally let him back in, and then he lost because he's sliding around on clay and stuff like that. So the Russian guy, after he got beat in Australia and then in Mexico, after he got beat in Australia and Mexico, then they played again in Indian Wells in California, and he had to get in. He didn't even get out of the quarterfinals this time because he had to play this guy from France called Monfils. I don't know if y'all ever know who Gail Monfils is. Gail Monfils and wife.
These pictures should match.
Let's see. That's Gail Monfils right there. Gail Monfils and his wife, Alina Svitolina. Svitolina. Alina Svitolina. She's a Ukrainian tennis player. And that's Gail Monfils, which I might add I'm freaking out because he kind of looks like Duane Martin. And it was, to me, when I was watching this stuff unfold, it was like almost like watching a ghost come back and beat the Russian guy. And so I don't know if you keep up with this stuff, but it's interesting to me because of who was playing and stuff, and because they started arguing back and forth. They started arguing back and forth about the vaccine, stuff like that. But when he was playing Gail Monfils in the quarterfinals, he didn't even get out of the quarterfinals. The Russian guy, he hit a serve, 100-mile-an-hour serve, and the ball hit Monfils square in the gonads. Bam! Hit him in the balls, and Monfils somehow came back and beat him. So the Russian guy didn't even get out of quarterfinals this time. So then the Russian guy went to Miami Open. So now he's in Miami Open. So finally in Miami Open, the Russian guy gets a hernia. He gets a hernia, and now he's out for hernia surgery. He'll be out for a couple of months probably. But the thing is that if you keep up with this stuff, as soon as he comes back to play again, he has to play one of those little short guys from Spain again. And and they're going to play on clay, and he's too tall to play on clay. And basically, he's going to be like sliding around every shot. He's going to be sliding around. He's going to be sliding around like on the clay and stuff. He's going to rip that hernia open again. And now they're saying that Monfils' wife, Monfils' wife said that she wrote a letter to Boris Johnson, and saying that asking him to do more against Russia as far as sanctions because they invaded Ukraine. It's her home country, and the Russian and the guy from Serbia, the Russian guy and the people from the tennis players from Belarus, they have been blocked out of Wimbledon altogether. So they don't even want to come to the match. So, it's a lot of stuff being done in different venues and stuff like that. Let's see. But that's the tennis circuit. So that's in a lot of news. And others, I don't know if this is true or not, but they're saying that what's the guy name? Deion Sanders lost 2 toes. Is that true? I don't know. I've looked it up a couple of times, but they're saying like Deion Sanders had 2 toes missing. And I've been in a couple of injuries myself. I know that's got to be heart wrenching. I know it's got to be heart wrenching to lose 2 toes and be somebody like Deion Sanders and stuff like that. Because I know I got in an accident once. I got a fake hip. I had a fake hip because I got shot in the hip one time a long time ago. And then also in another separate accident, one of my feet was almost cut off completely. And it's a very interesting story because, wow, there just happened to be a heart surgeon and a muscle surgeon and a vein surgeon on duty at the hospital that I went to, at Baptist Hospital. Shout out to Baptist Hospital. Uh, they really took care of me. They just happened to be in the doctor's lounge. They just happened to be a heart surgeon, a vein surgeon, and a muscle surgeon, and they just happened to be sitting in the doctor's lounge when I came in, and they were waiting for a heart to get there. There was a They were about to do heart surgery, a heart transplant. So they had about an hour before the helicopter got there with the heart. So they looked at my file. They looked at my file real quickly, and they scrubbed in, and it was like tag team wrestling. Of course, I was unconscious, under sedation, but I was told it was like tag team wrestling by one of the doctors. He said, basically, the muscle surgeon jumped in and he sewed the muscle back together. Then the vein surgeon tagged in, and the vein surgeon sewed the vein back together. And then there was also a plastic surgeon there. The plastic surgeon guy, he sewed the wound closed. So those three doctors, I thank you so much, Baptist Hospital, because my foot is like new. As a matter of fact, it's kind of springy. Probably made me even faster than I am right now. But I know that can be hard when people have injuries like that. So to Deion Sanders, I want to say, get well soon. And it just is what it is. So, but I like to close out by giving a little bit of investment advice. And let's see, I got some investment advice for you here. Basically, I've talked about this a couple of times on some of the other different podcasts. And let's see. But let's see, here you go. CNBC, one of my favorite apps. I watch two different stock market channels. I watch CNBC News, and I also watch Bloomberg Channel, and I also sometimes watch Cheddar, which is another financial news source. And but basically, it talks about different stocks and stuff like that. And I'm gonna show you my watch list. I created a watch list here, and this dates back to when before the coronavirus hit. I had already been picking different companies that's not affected by stuff that's going on in China. And that's basically what you want to do now. Stay on that same path. Try to pick companies that's not affected by what's going on in China. As a matter of fact, eventually it's going to be like an emerging markets, Ukaine, because they're probably going to start buying a lot of stuff themselves that they don't have to deal with Russia about and stuff like that. So, well, last summer, of course, the vaccine stocks hit. Man, as you can see, a lot of vaccine stocks that are down now. But, there was a time when the vaccine stocks went through the roof. And, of course, you want to get your tech spider here. And you want to talk about the different tech stocks that are out there. As you can see, I got Apple. They moved back to the United States. Taiwan Semiconductor. They just moved to Texas from Taiwan. Facebook, Twitter, Intel, Qualcomm, Broadcom, Nvidia is another real good one. You want to make sure you get the technology people that make the computer chips, because there's a shortage of computer chips right now. So these companies are going to take off periodically. Where if you're a day trader or something, you can trade almost every day and make money. And I would say some people, if you leverage about, and this is just a guesstimation, but if you leverage about $25,000 and you leverage it on a daily basis, you can make $2-3 grand a day. You can make $2-3 grand a day if you invest it right. And but you want to get you some what they call fintech. Somebody like Fidelity has good fintech out now. J.P. Morgan Chase has good fintech. Let's see. There's a bunch of different people that have this new fintech that's out now. Let's see. Let me see. Go to another one. Fortune 500 companies. I also monitor the cryptocurrencies. You can monitor the cryptocurrencies on here also. Dogecoin, Elon Musk's favorite, or the regular Bitcoin, and some of the stations that traded like Grayscale and Riot Blockchain and people like that. And but I also monitor the cryptocurrencies and things like that. But what you want to do is get your what's going. And what I would say there's a real big argument now that has to do with Twitter and Elon Musk. Now, Twitter has said that they don't want Elon Musk to have any of their shares and that they're going to take like this poison pill to keep Elon Musk from getting any shares and stuff like that. And I don't think it's going to work because if you look this up here, and you can look it up yourselves, look up the Twitter stock. Let's look up the Twitter stock. Okay, that's today. This morning is jumping. Okay, but if you go to 6 months worth of data and then maybe like a year's worth of data, you can see a real decline. A real decline. Now, over the last year, and bet you, can any of you tell me what's going on with this company? It was at $70 a share, $72 a share at its height, but it dropped. Now, what I think it is that he keeps kicking people off of Twitter. He keeps Jack Dorsey and this management at Twitter. He kicks somebody off of Twitter every 5 minutes, and he's being sued. Each individual person or organization, sometimes they file lawsuits. They file lawsuit. Not, it is what it is. So if the stock keeps plummeting like this and it's because of the management, then the only thing you can do really to save the company is change the management. But Jack Dorsey, he's not going nowhere. Now, Jack Dorsey's a genius. He's just like an Elon Musk. He's a genius, knows his numbers, knows his tech, knows his code. However, over the last 2 years, they have become very political people at Twitter. So they have their own opinions about what they think free speech should be, and it's hurting them. And if I was Elon Musk, I would not try to purchase it for $54 billion. It's not worth that much because this basically would amount to an unrealized debt potential. Unrealized debt potential. So that's an unrealized debt potential because these are lawsuits that won't be over with for 4 years from now. And a lot of them going to win. That could be like $5 billion worth of debt that they end up having to pay out to all these different people that filed all these lawsuits because he's kicking somebody off, and then the stock drops. Then he kicked another guy. Let's say tomorrow they kick Will Smith off because he smacked Chris Rock. Because he tweeted, he said, "Hey, keep my wife's name out of your fucking mouth." They say Will Smith tweets that, and he smacked Chris Rock, and then they kick Will Smith off, and they say that's hate speech, that's violent speech, and they kick him off. The stock is going to drop again. You know why? Because Will Smith, he still has fans. And now they're talking about this NFT. They're talking about this NFT thing where Jack Dorsey basically, the last NFT that he sold in Forbes magazine, though this is pretty important, but they say that this thing sold for $29 million like a year ago. It's a Jack Dorsey NFT. 2 years ago, it sold for 2 years ago, his NFT, that's Jack Dorsey. That's the guy who, I think he like invented Twitter or something. But his NFT sold for $29 million last year. And now they're saying nobody's bidding more than $10,000 over it. So it's like his interest has really fallen, and that's debatable also. But it looks like it's because he's become political over the last 2 years, and he keeps kicking people off of Twitter. So this is like proof of it. It's not worth $54 billion. I will offer, and if Elon Musk keeps purchasing 10% at a time, he can have the whole thing in 10 easy payments of like $2.89 billion. And that's around $30 billion, not no $54 billion or something like that. So it is what it is. So, I like to give a little investment advice also. But that's about it for that I had to say for today. And I also want to say if you guys get a chance to pick up one of my action novels, blurb.com, Fox Hunt, Duane Fletcher, codename Lionfish, Duane Fletcher. Talks about Chinese spies here in Jacksonville. Also, I can't find the other book now because I made a mess here off camera. But Dance of the Mongoose by Duane Fletcher. I got some new material coming out. It has to do with some of the research that I did. It has to do with the tennis matches that were going on. I have I don't know what I'm going to call that yet, but I got another one coming out called The Battle of Fletcher. And the Battle of Fletcher is the arrows. It's in reference to ancient fight from when Napoleon tried to invade. Russia, they had this battle called the Battle of Fletcher, where they fought down to neither side had any ammunition. One of the French snipers got off a shot with his last bullet, and boom, he took out this Russian general. And the Russians ran off the battlefield once they because it was like the only leadership that they had. The Russians ran off the battlefield, and then they fought hand to hand. They fought with bayonets because neither one had any more cannonballs left. Neither one of them had any more musket balls left. So they started fighting with bayonets and it's called the Battle of Fletcher, the arrows. So that's going to be the name of the new book that I got coming out. It's going to be really good. It's going to talk about some of the research that I did that has to do with this argument in the UN in relation to that really unusual weather pattern that I was describing to you, and the stuff that they were talking about that had to do with chemical weapons and all this kind of stuff like that. But that's going to be called the Battle of Fletcher. It's about some research that I did on this also. If y'all like watch movies, but let's see, Death on the Nile, the new 2022 Death on the Nile. I know some of y'all know Death on the Nile was written back in I think it was original Death on the Nile was like written back in the 1920s or something like that. And it stars a famous French policeman called Hercule Poirot. And he's the guy that wrote Death on the Orient. He was the same policeman on Death on the Orient Express. And then but now they made a remake called Death on the Nile. It's 2022. But the beginning of the movie, he talks about the philosophy of these wind patterns in association to someone using chemical weapons on a battlefield in World War One, and the French forces using smoke and chemical weapons to hide their numbers as they advanced on the Germans and stuff. They used the wind also. But the beginning of that movie, the beginning of the new Death on the Nile movie, Death on the Nile 2022, they talk about the philosophy associated with wind patterns in relation to the chemical weapons and stuff like that. And if y'all get a chance to, like I said, check it out. Blurb.com, Duane Fletcher, blurb.com. I got some good material coming out. And like I said before, my heart goes out to the people of Ukaine. Hopefully they can continue to beat the Russians about their brow until this thing is over with, because it's not really going to be any peace until the Russians are completely gone. It looks like they are too smart for the Russians. They are too smart. They are too smart, got too much fight in them, and they probably love that country more than he does. They love the Ukraine more than he wants it. And so that's all I got to say. Thank you and good night.